All right, here we have the second notes video for the first unit. Use this for questions 12 to 21 on the study guide, and you need to have those done by April 8th, which I believe is a Wednesday, before midnight on that day. So our first notes talk mostly about media and the problems that we have or the tactics they use and how they connect people to the government. Here, obviously, we're talking about political parties, and here's your definition of it. I would pay very special attention to this part right there. All right. That overall is going to be the big goal of political parties. You are organizing people, you're teaming up to win. In the United States, if you don't win, you get nothing. You don't get a chance to set up public policy. You don't get a chance to make laws. You don't get to do any of that stuff if you don't win the election first. It's a winner take all system. And so that is what drives like 90% of what parties actually do. That's just how our system is set up. There's really not a way around it. Okay. This is going to be different than what an interest group is. They're not really trying to win an election. They're trying to bring attention to a specific issue. And that is specifically the difference between those two. And so let's not get those confused. Parties want to win elections, which means they have to get voters. And so that's a big chunk of what they do. Here's that picture that we had in the beginning of last time. These are all linkage institutions. We already covered media. Now we're on parties. Remember, this is how the people get connected to the government. Parties is a huge way to do this as well. So we're going to go through 5 main functions of parties and how they interact with people and how they interact with the government both. And so number 1, and the biggest thing is, right, if you have to win, you need voters. So how can we mobilize people to show up and vote and educate them on why they should vote for that particular party? Technology is obviously the biggest and growing way that they can do that, especially with social media. Twitter and Facebook, we talked about this in some earlier unit, I know, but it allows people in the government, whether it's the president, whether it's members of Congress, you are constantly engaging. You're always able to talk to people, send out messages, interact with them, rally people along the way. But technology has also allowed us to get a lot of data on voters. And the question is, and AP wants us to talk about this, is how much is too much? Where's the line is really the question.
They had apps on Facebook that were given special permission to harvest data not from just the person who used the app or joined the app, but also it would then go into their entire friend network and pull out all of the friends' data as well. Things like status updates, likes, in some cases private messages. We would only need to touch a couple 100,000 people to expand into their entire social network, which would then scale us to most of America.
And people had no idea that their data was being taken in this way.
No.
We don't work with Facebook data, we don't have Facebook data. We do use Facebook as a platform to advertise, as do all brands and most agencies, or all agencies I should say.
From when I was there, that's just fundamentally not true, because we spent $1 million harvesting tens of millions of Facebook profiles. The company itself was founded on using Facebook data. We would know what kinds of messaging you would be susceptible to and where you're going to consume that. And then how many times do we need to touch you with that in order to change how you think about something. It is a full-service propaganda machine.
So the more information parties can get about you, the better for them, right? I mean, that way they know, like he said, what you are susceptible to. If you post a lot of things about, guns and hunting, then they probably figure out, oh, well, you're going to be sensitive to issues involving that. What kind of, news stories and propaganda can we push you, in that way that's going to motivate you to get out and go vote for the particular candidate that we want you to vote for? And like it says on Facebook and on Twitter and social media platforms like that, you're not really opting in to them being able to get your data through that. And that is something that Facebook specifically has really taken a lot of flack for lately. I don't know if you're comfortable with that or not. I would say TikTok is going to be the same way. But, I just whatever. Okay? It's an ongoing struggle about how much data is out there and how much companies can look at your social media platforms and what they can figure out about you on the internet. And it definitely goes into political parties because the more they know, the more they can motivate you to go vote for them. So that is step one, though. That's a big way they mobilize. Number two here, managing people's campaigns. All right, this is actually pretty simple. You get money from the party. And we'll talk more about campaign finance a lot more in our next unit. But they really help you. The more you have your party behind you, the more they can also get your name out there as far as publicity goes and media appearances. Same thing with the Democrats. We had a few debates. They had to cut it off. We had like 20 some people running for president at one time for the Democrats, but only I think like the top, original like 11 or 12 or something like that were in any of the debates. So if you didn't really make a splash for yourself, then the party wasn't gonna, help you out and get you out there anymore because they didn't really think you had a chance to win. So the debate thing is still a formal way to get on TV and get yourself in front of people and with the other candidates that does matter a lot. And so you need to get the party on your side. All right. Other things party do is they actively recruit people. They recruit young people as well, even people your age, to join their parties. And, getting young 18-year-olds to vote is going to be a big thing this year. But who is going to be, a rising star is a lot of times the term that you hear on TV. But if you can get your party's endorsement, you can win primaries or you can get the party machine behind you or get funding from your party, that gives you legitimacy. You don't want to always run as an independent. If you're an independent, that means you must be weird in some ways. Not that an independent can't win in some circumstances, but if you're not a Democrat and you're not a Republican, then what the heck are you, right? Is like automatically what people think in their heads. That may not be fair to independents, but that is the way that it is. So, we have had outsiders kind of wiggle their way into party legitimacy, and that's why I put Donald Trump up here. Listen, if you would have asked the official Republican Party who they wanted to be their presidential nominee in 2016, Donald Trump would have been way down on the list. But the dude started winning primaries and became popular with the people within the party. And so the Republicans had no choice but to be like, okay, guess he's our guy. We'll talk more about that when we get to the campaign stuff next unit too. But sometimes if you can keep the attention on yourself, eventually the parties have to pay attention to you. Okay. Number four, the other thing parties do is they set their official platforms. Again, a platform is where you stand on the issues. This is just a little snippet here. But every 4 years officially at the national conventions, and not to say that they don't make tweaks to their platforms in the middle of those 4 years, but every 4 years they do rewrite and repass and reevaluate their official platforms. And so not only do you get a new candidate for president every 4 years, but you also get to emphasize other issues that have been, become part of the national conscience. You are actively trying to get more voters, obviously, all the time. And so if you can make it look like you're up to date on issues and you're not just talking about the same thing you've been talking about for 50 years, that does help. So that's the platform. It's just where people stand on the issues and where their party officially stands on the issues. Okay. Little commercial here.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy. Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
So the term herding cats, right, is a little phrase in the United States. Basically, it means it's impossible to do, right? Like herding cats, you're trying to keep a big group of things together that you really can't do. And so the rest of this notes is going to be talking about, like, why does the United States have a two-party system? And since we really only have two main parties, Republicans and Democrats, that means those parties are really, really big. And it is hard to keep an entire party together. Like, it is hard for Republicans and it is hard for Democrats to get everybody that they want to, even those who say they're Republican or Democrat, it's hard to get them to turn out on election day and actually vote. So this is why you need really strong leadership, not just in the legislatures, but also within the party for the American people. Think about this from Donald Trump and the Republicans' perspective right now. If we're going to get something passed, and if it's going to be popular with the American people, well, think about all the little groups that all call themselves Republicans, but they all have a little bit different demographics or different interests or different things that they care about a lot. You know, Trump and the Republicans have to keep small business owners happy, along with huge corporate people. They have to keep religious conservatives happy, right? They got to worry about Medicare and Social Security beneficiaries because a ton of Republican voters are old. And yet, Republicans really don't like Medicare and Social Security. They would love to cut those because they're so expensive and they believe in, cutting programs. And yet, if you cut those, the elderly are going to get upset. So that's a little dance they have to do all the time. It's hard for them to balance that. Okay, then there's the Tea Party members in the Republican Party that hate taxes, any taxes, period. Right, and then you got blue collar workers as well. Like, I don't know. This is a lot of groups within the Republican Party. They all call themselves Republicans, but it's hard to keep them all happy. On the flip side, for the Democrats, it used to be Obama. Who knows how it's going to be? I guess it's Biden's job now, most likely. But the Democrats, on the flip side, have to also worry about blue-collar workers, right? They got to worry about all kinds of inner-city minorities, right? And they, of course, different races and stuff along the way. They got to worry about the Green Party not swooping in and taking votes away from them and always catering to environmental issues and stuff like that. And then you got Bernie and the Democratic Socialists that they're trying to keep happy too, right? So kind of if we go back to the whole spectrum thing that we did, before, spring break, hey, anything left of center, yeah, it's kind of Democrat territory, but there's all kinds of, it's a pretty big difference from someone that's here versus someone that's way out here. All right. So why do we only have a two-party system is the question. And the reason is because in the United States, we have what's called a plurality system of voting. In other words, it's a winner-take-all system. So think of it this way. If we were sitting in class right now, what we would do is I would say, all right, we are all going to order like one thing to drink. Okay? Everybody gets the same thing though. All right? We all are going to share one thing to drink. Here's the options. You got 8 options. Okay? For what? 11 people in the class. Now, we would actually vote and work this out, okay? But think about this. If we were all going to vote, let's say, a few people voted for tea and, 2 people voted for lemonade and 3 people voted for coffee. Let's say coffee won with 3 out of 11 total votes. Okay, well, if some of you that did not vote for coffee really don't want coffee, would you have changed your vote to something else that you knew could win, right? I mean, what if, Robin was out there voting for purple Gatorade by herself, okay? And she's like, oh, well, if I would have known purple Gatorade had no chance of winning, I would have joined the lemonade group, okay? And I would have gone with that. So here's my point. If we're only going to have one thing to drink, wouldn't we basically narrow this down and not have 8 options? Wouldn't we kind of vote once and be like, all right, hey, top 2 are coffee and lemonade. All right, let's throw the other 6 things out and let's vote again for just between coffee and lemonade. What do we want? Okay, and then you're basically voting for the lesser of 2 evils or whatever sounds better to you at that time. If we're all going to share the same thing, it makes sense to only have 2 choices, is what I'm getting at. This has been an AP question on the exam and stuff the last few years, but the biggest reason for why we have a 2-party system in the US is C. There can only be one winner. So let's look at this, okay, how we do this and why we do this. So, okay, here's what other countries around the world actually do. Most European democracies have what they call a proportional voting system. Okay? Instead of really voting for like a candidate, you don't go to the ballot box usually and necessarily like check a name as much as you're voting for a party. All right? So what would then happen is they would take the total percentage of the votes that a party got, and the next party got, and the next party got, and they would fill Congress or their legislature, whatever they call it, up with the percentage of those votes. Okay? So if we were doing it in the United States, here's what this would look like. Okay? We wouldn't have all those weird, goofy, gerrymandered districts, right, for the House of Representatives. It would just be this. You got one big fat district that is the United States. Okay? And everyone's going to go vote. We still are going to put 435 people in the House of Representatives, but instead of having 435 tiny little goofy shaped pieces, we just have one big piece, and we're going to get 435 people from everywhere here and stick them in the House in DC. So then we would take national voting results. It wouldn't necessarily be by state. Okay? It would just be, all right, 52% of the country said, I want Republican Party. Not a name within the Republican Party, just Republican Party. And then down here like that. So then you would take these percentages, you would multiply those by 435, right? Bring in some math, yeah, okay? And here's basically what you would look like. So we still need 435 people in the House like we have now, but this, since 52% of America voted for Republicans, 226 would be in there from them. 140 Democrats, 44 Green, 17 Libertarian. Now, how many Green Party members are in the House right now? And how many Libertarian Party people are in the House right now out of those 435? The answer is none. They're all Democrats and Republicans. Okay? So if you do it this way, it makes sense to have more parties, right? Because Green and Libertarian, they're getting some, right? Most democracies do it this way. We do not. All right. So we decided not to do it. Now, in this case, right, if this was the national voting results and how it turned out, great, right? Green Party, Libertarian Party, there's no losers. They're actually winners, right? There's no throwing away your vote, right? Third parties have a hard time existing now because I know if I go to the ballot box and I vote for the Green Party, it's like, they're not going to win. I'm voting for the Green Party because, hey, I am doing it on principle. Okay? We didn't do it this way because the founders, I think, argued that we wanted more personal, more local representation. You know, if those 224 or whatever Republicans, you know, because they got 52%, so we're picking 224 Republicans from across the country, well, where are those going to be from? There's no guarantee that one would necessarily be living around this district in Kansas. You get what I'm saying? So we kind of went with 435 different pieces to make sure that your House rep has to live in that district and is going to be local. Hopefully then they know something about their district, right? That's a better representation of those people living in this district. That's the idea of why we did it our way. But what that means is we're more likely just to end up with 2 different parties. Instead, we did this, right? Where here, we live in this yellow District 4 in Kansas right here, one person wins this. all right? And hopefully he knows the people that are in this district pretty well, all right? Since we have a plurality system and don't do it the proportional way and did winner-take-all districts, here's what usually ends up. Since it's a winner-take-all system, remember, second place gets absolutely nothing. There's no difference between second place and 10th place. So the stakes are super high, so the parties have to win, all right? So we're going to start teaming up. Okay, great. Here's what we got. We still got 6 parties here. And blue is winning, right? Woohoo. Now remember, second place gets nothing. So if you are red or orange or yellow or green or purple, it doesn't matter that you're on your own. You don't get a trophy for second place. So what should you start doing? Okay, you say, hey, second place gets nothing. We better go talk to, orange and yellow. And hey, look at that. We got them to join up. Now look at us. We won. Haha. Okay. And over here, blue now is saying, man, we lost. Okay. Well, next time around, we better go get some more voters. We better go talk to green. Whatever the Green Party's deal is over here, whatever they care about, why ever they weren't a part of us to begin with, okay, well, we better start talking about them. All right? Whatever issue they cared about, we better get into our platform. And that's why Democrats and Republicans have such big, huge, wide platforms. Now, we do still have third parties in the United States, which is why over here, little purple's like, you know what? I'm not joining anybody. Don't ask me, okay? I'm over here. I'm by myself. Neither Democrats or Republicans represent me. I'm hanging out. I'm going to vote on my principles. I don't care that I'm going to lose. At least I can sleep at night knowing I voted for what I believe. So we do still have that, but there's no chance of them winning, all right? So it ends up being a two-party system in this way. Okay? It makes sense. You have to team up until only 2 choices remain. It does no good to be a small party out there on your own by yourself. All right? Hopefully that made a little bit of sense. If we were a proportional system, you could have more parties, and that's why, Great Britain and France and European countries like that usually have 5, 6 legit parties that have representation in Congress. But we have 2 because that's what our system basically demands. We're never going to have a really successful third party with staying power until that whole thing changes. Just not going to happen. So in the meantime, all right, here's District 4. There's Ron Estes. He's our guy. Okay. I just tried to find a picture of him completely out of context and him standing in a ditch swamp. It's kind of funny to me. So, okay, he's our guy. All right, he represents all this. He's the only winner. He's it. But again, what our founders were hoping is that he knows us as a people really well and can better represent us than someone just saying, well, I'm a Republican. I represent people all over the country. But maybe Kansas Republicans are different than, Republicans in Montana. I don't know. So, one last thing then. Since it is a winner-take-all district, right? Here's District 1 in Kansas, mostly western Kansas. In 2016, now we've had an election since then, 2018, but in 2016, here were the candidates and how it turned out in western Kansas in District 1. Who's not there? There is no Democratic candidate. Why did a Democrat not even run out in western Kansas in 2016? Because it's a winner-take-all system, and they said, hey, there's really no chance, okay? Democrats said, why spend the money? Why try to coordinate things? Why travel around what is a pretty dang big district by gerrymandered standards go? Hey, there's no chance we're going to win. We can use our resources in better places elsewhere. All right, so sometimes even the big parties just say, yeah, there's no chance of us winning, not worth it. All right, here's our last slide. So, okay, I think an unintended consequence, though, of drawing the 435 districts is obviously the gerrymandering, which we've covered a ton. When states get to control their districts, so they get to rig things along the way. In 2016, for the House, right, Republicans got 49.1. and got 241 of the 435 House seats. Democrats got 48% of the vote, which is almost the same, but only got 194 House seats. Okay, so even though the national voting was basically even, There's a big difference in the number of House seats that one party won compared to the other. And that's because of gerrymandering. And so that is something that you need to take into account. But gerrymandering has become a huge problem, doing it the way that we do also. I'm not saying we should change to a proportional system, but there is becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger push for that as the years go on, mostly because people don't feel like their votes are getting counted as well or very equally, right? Which goes back to those court cases and gerrymandering that we talked about. All right, so again, use this set of notes here for questions, 12 through 21. All right, and keep taking care of yourself, please. Till next time.